Hey, and welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR, and we have another piece of the Matt Weiss chronological study, whatever you want to call it at this point. It's not fun to talk about. It's not something that, you love to do news stories on or anything like that. But some new information did come out, and I think it does pertain to the last video that I did about connecting Matt Weiss to, well, not trying to connect, asking the question if Matt Weiss is connected to Connor Stallions. Just to recap that video really fast, I think that it's possible. I'm not saying it's likely, but it's one of those situations where you can't completely discount it. But anybody that's out there and saying, oh, this has totally happened and it's 100% happened and there's no argument against it, those people are just silly. The people who are saying there's no way there was anything that ever happened and there's no connection, those arguments are just silly. At the end of the day, there's too much gray area. We don't know for sure. I lean on the side that it didn't, that it wasn't connected to Connor Stallions because we just don't have any connection there. Now, maybe information will come out, but until it comes out, we don't really need to connect these two stories. If information comes out, then we will talk about that. But until then, we need to just mostly continue to discover more about this story, make sure we're warning people, make sure people are vigilant of these kind of activities, so that way they can try to be aware and notify people, so that way something like this does not go on for 8 years, as it was said to have gone on that long with Matt Weiss. Now, to recap really fast on the entire story before we get to the victims, Matt Weiss was a former assistant coach at the University of Michigan. He was the quarterback coach his first year there, was elevated to co-offensive coordinator and quarterback coach, I believe, in 2022, his second year there. This was a dark secret that he had for about 8 years. It started in 2015, was revealed, and they went against it in 2023. That's when he got fired. And we are now starting to get information about people who were affected by it, victims of the situation, and I think the people that were affected by it are important to point out because it does give us some clarity on the Connor Stallions situation as well. Matt Weiss did not begin doing this in 2015 at Michigan. He began doing this in 2015 when he was an assistant coach at the Ravens. It was not his first year doing it when he was with the Baltimore Ravens. It was, I believe, year 4 or 5 when he was there, but he spent most of his career with the Baltimore Ravens. And then, obviously, he got found out when he was at Michigan. He is pleading not guilty to 24 counts of hacking and identity theft. The allegations were a long period of time. It was a scheme targeting female athletes, their private photos, things that, quote, were not meant to be shared, end quote, like that kind of stuff. If you can't read between the lines there, maybe ask somebody else. They'll fill you in, I'm sure. But he did exploit a service called the Keffer Development Services, a contractor for over 150,000 athletes. If you go on Google and try to figure out places that utilize this service, it's places like junior colleges, Michigan, Kent State, stuff like that. Those are the type of places that utilize this kind of service. He would go in and reset passwords using the information of these athletes and then get into their social media, their iClouds, all different kinds of things. And if you think to yourself, well, why would they store these things on their iClouds? Well, a lot of us have iCloud account, have Google Photos accounts, and we have those linked to our devices, and we have stuff being uploaded to those places even if we don't realize it or not. Most people realize it and they will either turn it off or they'll pay for the service, but some people don't even realize they are using those kind of services. And so if you're not realizing you're using that, then you could technically be able to, somebody else, I guess, could technically be able to go in, figure out your password, and then use that kind of material. Not only did he log into those places, but he also kept notes on the individuals. He kept notes on their, who they were, what was in those videos, what was in those photos, and everything else. And it was kind of it was very devious and a very dark secret. So moving on to the victims now. The first two victims that were notified to us were a gymnast and a soccer player. at the University of Michigan. Two ex-athletes, not current athletes, sue Weiss, and they also ended up suing the University of Michigan as they are blaming the university for not doing anything against this. I have no idea how this will go, if this will be something that sticks to Weiss and not the university, or maybe it will stick to both. I have no idea. We'll figure it out as the trial goes on, and I'm sure there will be more reporting on it, as these lawyers do like to be active on Twitter, social media, especially with cases like this that do get so much attention. So go find, I believe the lawyer's name is Stenner, something like that. You can go find him on Twitter. You can go find the videos and everything else there, and I'm sure they'll be updating those. They also sued the Kefir Development Service, and they're suing based on negligence, leading to their betrayal of information and trauma as well. But as we are learning, this was just the start of more victims coming out, as victims from Westmount College in California, Santa Barbara, California, were notified of the hacking into their personal accounts as well, which is very strange because Westmount College is very far away from Michigan. It is all the way over in Santa Barbara, California, Southern California, I believe. And this was not somewhere that you would think, Matt Weiss would have been. Matt Weiss went to school at Vanderbilt. He graduated, or he was born in Connecticut. Really, the only connection he has to the state of California is that he was a graduate assistant at Stanford in the mid 2000s. But Stanford is also 5 hours away from Santa Barbara, California. So it's really difficult to find a connection here for how he went to Westmount College to, have these women be his victims or whatever you would call it. But the FBI visited years ago, and they found suspicious logins. And when they did that, they were able to figure out that these women had their accounts hacked, and they notified them of that happening. 5 Westmount athletes were notified among Weiss's victims. Later on, in a story by Dan Wetzel, who is now with ESPN, he listed a few states where the indictment mentions people were victims of Matt Weiss. Those states being Michigan, California, those two we already know, and then additionally Pennsylvania and Maryland were also in there. 3,300 estimated victims across many different schools, across different states. These 4 states mentioned, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and California, are not the only states. Probably there will be more people who come out. They could be the only states. We have no idea, but they are probably not the only states. And this is one of the most prolific cases by an individual, according to an expert that Dan Wetzel quoted. This is just a crazy, crazy story. The victims are coming out now. The FBI says that they will be notifying more victims as they get the information. So if this is a situation where somebody was affected by this and it has to do with Connor Stallions or anything, I guess my point is that information will come out. If it doesn't come out, then we don't need to keep making up this story and trying to link this to something else and making this rivalry banter and everything. If it comes out, it comes out, and that's just one more sad piece of the story that he was involved in that as well. But for all we know, it will never come out. For all we know, all of this is just storytelling and rumors and gossip. We'll see what happens. To me, this is far too real life. This has far too many victims for somebody to just be speculating openly on the internet. But then again, this is the internet, and that's kind of what happens here. So let me know what you think. Do you think that those are the only 4 states where victims are coming out from? Do you think there are more? Would love to hear your thoughts on this, and I'll talk to you next time. Like, subscribe, comment, do all those things. I appreciate it. Have a good one.